Students overall, let's say, did not perform very well. So in this particular section, I will present samples of students' responses to the questions above. The first of the samples pertains to answers delivered in the course of a midterm assessment. As will be shown, none of the categories of student responses selected and presented here, that is a failing response, a borderline pass response, and a moderate response. So none of these student responses demonstrated complete understanding of the source and what was implied therein. Students were then asked to improvise a reenactment of the source and were given the freedom to allocate play roles among them in order to bring the source to life. The course instructor, myself, Konstantinos Giakoumis, observed the process and intervened only to incite students to think of the internal stratification of the guild implied by the very process of testing and certification. Okay, this process of testing and certification denotes a stratification, and also how candidate masters would feel about the differentiation of testing fees depending on the family's professional background of the candidates, and how this practice implements a covert membership, a hidden membership policy of the guild. Students, as can be viewed by the video to be presented immediately hereafter, enjoyed the experience and got quite animated by role-playing. A noteworthy detail to this present webinar is that in one of the enactments, a student stated in her improvisation that, quote, her father was a merchant, end quote, in response to the testing committee's question regarding her father's profession.
Udaniame kë e punua. Unë kam zënë usta e më të mirë, të laçit, të tullës, të patimimit, të stukimit, të zgjekimit. Të shikosh Okej. Juve babai juaj? Tregtar. Me të nuk I keni babain këtu si neve vojaxhit. Kështu që me që ti se ke babai vojaxhit, keni tarif më të madhe, zgëfat, pa I poshta. Okej, do jash dhe më shumë. Do jash 2 shishe raki, ne vojaxhit edhe do jash edhe 500 ashe për komisionin, për shkollën, edhe 10 ashe për policin që në arruajnë. Kede një vjetë për policin. I shumë okej, do urojmë suksesa. Tani shamar e vidon. Me që ke punu me kosën, ke marrë. Okej. Dhe më pashe. Kandidati për vojaxhia.
Si, përshëndetje. Unë kam marrë të regjistruar për testimin.
Ke praktikuar mirë, ndjeshe, gatshme për të bërë vojaxhit?
Okej, më mirë. Kemi babai.
Që të tja kemi dëshmi për komentare, babai ku punon?
Tregtar.
Po me thënë babai jot nuk është në profesion këto, kështu që I vjet të japësh diçka më tepër, të japësh një tarif më të madh, me që babai është. Do japësh 2 shishe terapis, do japësh 500 ashe, edhe do japësh dhe një djece të tokë për policin e zonës. Është tani juve nxënëse ty keni.
Nxënëse e ustashmos.
Gjithë posa ka përgatitur. Mund se Shqipëria do ketë vojaxhime shumë. Okej, përgatiteni për testin. Atëherë merrni dëshmi për kreditarin pas testit.
After this short and impromptu piece of dramatization, students were asked to rewrite their responses within 2 weeks' time. The comparison of the responses elicited before and after the dramatization are much telling of the dramatization's effects on empathy development and historical understanding. The failing students' response at the first attempt merely begged the question and provided a self-evident response. Quote, "The source provides evidence for the study of the Guild of Painters in Elbasan for the year 1745." End quote. Although the quality of the response did not improve dramatically after the intervention, after the dramatization, the student, however, grasped that testing fee differentiation points to a policy of the Guild which ought to have generated diverse emotional reactions. Quote, after the intervention, "This source demonstrates that the study of the Guild is essential. This Guild has played an important role," and the rest is off topic. And the text emphasizes that for registering for the exam, the children of dyers had to pay less than the children of merchants, and more money for exam registration was required from children whose fathers were merchants, thus worse off. End quote. The borderline pass student response, the borderline response also begged the question and upheld a self-evident point. Quote, "Regarding the source, I think that it serves to study the economic and social history of that time. As we know, all sources provide us with information related to what we are looking for. Here, specifically, it presents us with information on how the Guild functioned during that period." End quote. The same student's response after the intervention, however, demonstrates solid evidence of comprehension, yet not in full length or depth, of the Guild's policy on its membership, as well as of hierarchical system of the Guild's internal organization. Quote, "The Guild established strict rules for the testing of children of masters and other individuals who wanted to become part of the craft. When the children of masters are tested, they must pay a fee to the local officer. This shows a standardized fee structure for the existing members of the dyers community. In contrast, for non-members, the children who are not of masters, the fees are higher. This fee differential suggests a hierarchical system that favors the existing Guild members and their families, making entry into the craft difficult. The mention of a province police, a chavous, as a beneficiary of part of the fees indicates the involvement of local authorities in the Guild processes, suggesting reciprocal relations where the authorities support and oversee the Guild's activities in exchange for financial benefits." End quote. The moderate response below, written before the intervention, demonstrates a clear understanding of the Elbasan Guild of Dyers membership policy, though still without a proper terminology and discourse rigor, and even suggested an explanation regarding the Guild's policy of differentiating between different children of its member masters and children of masters of other guilds members. Quote, before the intervention, "Through this source, we obtained some data about the members and the organization formed by the Dyers Guild. In this corporation, members of the Guild have the right to enter regardless of whether or not they have a dyer father in their background. The corporation certainly provides payment facilities for the children of dyers, considering and assuming that the members of these families have firstly a contributor and secondly a teacher in their family for the profession. This is valuable for the Dyers Guild Corporation." End quote. The same student's response after the intervention reflects not only a deeper grasp of the Guild's membership policy, presented in some detail also utilizing data from the course's lectures, but also extend it to its emotional effects for candidate masters, as well as to the quantitative effect of the policy to the number of masters in the Elbasan Guild of Dyers. Quote, in this source, we learn that we are dealing with an organization of dyers. In this organization, the guilds are established. They create conditions for increasing or not increasing the members of the Dyers Guild and the methods for admitting new members. The time for new members to take exams was after 3 years of study. Only in this way, with the help of experience and study, could they be eligible for membership. Membership was subject to fees. The fee varied from 10 akce for the local chavous who assisted during the exam. Children with non-dyer parents had a higher fee of 500 akce, 2 okas of raki, and 10 akce for the chavous. These differences created dissatisfaction and did not significantly increase the number of dyers, which was also a goal of the organization. In the organization, there was the chief dyer, a secretary who wrote, and perhaps also a testing committee composed of dyers, that is, from other leading members of the Dyers Guild. Membership included thereafter the apprentice, kalfa, in the terminology, a candidate for master, journeymen, and assistants, end quote. The same student now has not only utilized the play roles allocation to unlock the hierarchical organization of the guild, but also in doing so, the student formulated, yet not exhaustively, some of the social classes that can be observed in the guild. The improvement of quality of student answers after the source, impromptu dramatization, can certainly be credited to the active engagement of students in experiencing the source, thereby developing a reflective and empathetic understanding of its content. While critics may suggest that the improvement observed after the intervention should also be attributed to the time interval and reflection between the first and the second assessment, there is a single piece of evidence that demonstrates beyond shadow of doubt the role of dramatization in empathetically assimilating evidence, in empathetically assimilating overt and covert knowledge contained in a primary source. Although the given source makes no mention of a merchant, the mention of a merchant during the enactment improvisation created such a lasting effect for this very student as to repeat this in the second assignment. In what follows, a video created through artificial intelligence technologies such as Lumen 5, we shall look into a summary of this webinar. Thank you for following.
How can dramatization impact student understanding? Let's explore a study where students reenacted historical scenarios to deepen their comprehension. Initially, students struggled with understanding the source material. Their responses were often vague and lacked depth, failing to grasp the nuances of the Guild's policies and emotional implications. Students were then asked to improvise a reenactment of the source material. They allocated roles and brought the historical context to life, which made the experience engaging and animated. After the dramatization, students rewrote their responses. The failing student now recognized the emotional impact of fee differentiation. The borderline pass student demonstrated a better grasp of the Guild's hierarchical system. The moderate student provided a detailed analysis, including emotional and quantitative effects. The dramatization significantly improved student understanding and empathy. Critics might argue that time and reflection played a role, but the lasting impact of the dramatization, evidenced by specific details in student responses, underscores its effectiveness.